incidents happening in the world we live in. Grab a tissue. Here are the top 10 guests on Dr. Phil that will make you cry. Make sure you give us a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel. Let's get it going. 1. Religion of Doom. The FLDS, fully known as the Fundamental Church of Jesus Christ of the Latter-day Saints, is one strange church. Some of the practices upheld in their religion are beyond questionable. Dr. Phil hosted a young lady who had gone through the worst experience you could ever imagine at the hands of the church members and relatives. She was beaten by the belt with a broomstick, was burnt, molested, almost choked to death, was cut, and thrown against a brick wall. All these were common practices within the community, and sadly, the victims grew up believing that violence is normal and acceptable. The lady on the show said her sexual abuse started early from the age of 4 or 5 years. One day she was tied up to a metal frame in a basement and treated like a prisoner. In another day, she told one of her relatives that she was sick and tired of the abuse and wanted to leave. That was the day she almost died. He got so mad that he beat her and choked her, leaving her to die with bruises all over. The story was sad and heartbreaking, but the lady managed to escape, and today she is a survivor living to tell her story. If you think you're going through the worst in life, think again. Did you know that you can be virtually kidnapped? Kidnappers are getting smarter by the day. Here's one story of a couple that almost lost their minds when a scammer convinced them that they had their daughter in captive. 2. Virtual kidnapper. Andy and Bridget went through what you can say is a parent's worst nightmare. At 5 o'clock in the evening, they received a call from their daughter. She was sobbing on the other end. Then another man took over the phone and started making demands. He told them not to call the police, and if they did, he would shoot her in the head. He later on directed Andy to buy 2 Visa gift cards worth $500 each at the nearest grocery store. While he was in the store, Bridget called one of their family friends who was able to reach out to Samantha. Apparently, she had not been kidnapped or taken anywhere by force, but was safe, alive, and kicking. The virtual kidnappers had managed to hack Samantha's phone, call her parents, and pretend they had her. The 2 parents will never forget this ordeal, as they said they had never been as frightened as they were on that day. So, how exactly did the kidnapper manage to do this? He used a program on his computer to hack her phone and was able to access all phone numbers. There are sick men in this world, and they should be locked up. Here's one more unbelievable, shocking case that will have you shaking your head in disbelief. 3. The worst sex trafficking case in history. Kendall had the worst childhood and experienced the worst things that no one would ever wish upon their greatest enemy. All her life, she was taken as a sex slave and was used by different men, sometimes even 15 in a day. She would get pregnant, but most of the time they would end up being aborted. Through her life, she gave birth to 3 children who were all taken away from her. They were probably sold off. Her master told her that her parents sold her to him as a baby, so he owned her and that this was her destiny. From the age of 3, she had been subjected to the worst conditions. She lived in a cage, would be punished often for not obeying her master's commands, and as a result, she often contemplated suicide. One time, her master gave her a gun and told her to use it. When she pulled the trigger, nothing happened as it didn't have a bullet. He then burst out laughing, telling her that she could only die when he wanted her to. What a sick man. To think there are human beings like him in this world makes me sick to my stomach. They always say be careful who you let into your home for a reason. Deborah Newell got married to the devil himself without knowing what she was getting into. 4. Heartbreaking con man. Deborah Newell met a charming doctor who swept her off her feet. What she didn't know was that the man she thought was the love of her life would be her worst nightmare. It all started 5 months ago when they started dating. By the 5th date, she had fallen in love with him, and soon enough, he proposed to her. She said yes. The drama started after they got married. First of all, she found out he wasn't a doctor and had spent time in jail in the past. Yikes. He wasn't who she believed he was. He was a con man and very dangerous. He once made a comment that he would put a bullet through her daughter's head. No one in her family liked him. She decided to leave him when she found out about $30,000 was missing from her safety deposit box. But she had to do it strategically, or else she could have ended up in a casket. She got a professional to help her prepare to leave. She changed her passwords, moved her money to new accounts, and finally changed her appearance with a black wig and decided to flee from the crazy man. She was ready to make a clean exit, and her escape plan was successful. We are glad Deborah left this guy. You never know what could have happened. What would you do if your fiancé of 7 years left you at the altar? Well, this is exactly what happened to Sasha. 5. No-show groom. Sasha had been planning a wedding for the longest time when she received the most shocking news right on the day of her wedding. Just when Sasha and her bridesmaids were about to leave for the wedding venue, one of her bridesmaids called the manager of the place and was told there was no wedding planned for that day. The manager told them that it had been 2 months since the wedding had been canceled. The groom was the one who made these changes. When they tried to call him, he was a no-show. He started by saying he had a flat tire, was stuck in traffic, and the story kept on changing. Everyone was left in tears. Sasha couldn't believe that the love of her life was capable of doing this to her. It's sad and sickening that anyone could do this. We hope Sasha is able to get over this and her fiancé gets the worst that karma has to offer. Don't drink and drive. I repeat, do not drink and drive. The next story will have you in tears. 6. My daughter died. There's nothing as sad and heartbreaking as losing a child. Julie lost her 16-year-old daughter from an accident. She had been drunk driving when the accident happened. The poor girl didn't even make it to the hospital and was declared dead at the accident site. Julie came onto the show a couple of months later, and throughout the scene, the mother was in tears. She clearly misses her daughter and says nothing could ever replace the hole she left. Dr. Phil tries his best to comfort her, but we all can't help but shed a tear with this mother, whose world came to a near end with the loss of her child. Again, it's so hard to believe that human beings are capable of doing some things reported by the police. Some people are just monsters and they belong in jail. The next 2 parents were so evil that their daughter wishes they were put on death row. 7. The girl in the closet. I've never seen anything like this in my entire life, said a police officer after rescuing a young girl who had been held in captivity all her life. A young girl was found locked up in a closet covered in what appeared to be feces and urine. Gary McLean, the police officer who found her, said the place she lived in smelled so bad he couldn't believe the poor girl lived there. He said her hair reminded her of a rat's nest and that there were teeth marks all over the closet door. She had wounds all over her head, was underweight, and obviously malnourished. You would think the girl was living alone without a guardian. She lived with her mother, stepfather, and 5 other siblings. Of all the kids, she was the only one subjected to these horrible conditions. Barbara Catherine, a 30-year-old who was responsible for subjecting her own child to such misery, was finally arrested after a neighbor discovered. 15 years later after the ordeal, Lauren Kavanaugh, the then victim, was brought to the show. What she revealed left the whole crowd in tears. Apparently, she was kept as a sex slave. Both her parents would bring in men and women to their house who would have sex with her. They beat her several times, threatened her with a gun, and would oftentimes leave her out in the cold during the winter. There are bad people in this world. At least the parents got what they deserve, a life sentence. More heartbreaks coming your way. Here's the story of the teenager who killed his 2 infant siblings with his bare hands. 8. Teenager who killed siblings. Christine McCartney is going through the worst experiences ever. She lost her 2 youngest children, and the older one, who is a teenager, is currently in prison. He was found guilty for smothering the 2 children to death. It may sound like a fictional story, but this is all true. Think you're having a bad day? You might just reconsider that. The 2 kids were of 2 years and 11 months in age. One day, Christine came home and found her daughter breathing strange. She called the paramedics who, despite trying everything they could to save her, they couldn't, so she passed on. The second incident happened while Christine was at home. It was 3 months later when Nick, her elder son, called her and told her his brother wasn't okay. When she went to pick him up, she realized it was as if she was picking up a doll. He never moved. The infant was declared dead on the same day. Due to the strange order of events, the police had to investigate. The elder son finally confessed to having suffocated the infants to death. While on Dr. Phil's show, the mother revealed that her son had also smothered some kittens to death in the past. She appeared on the show completely shattered. Who wouldn't be after losing all your children? Human beings are the worst creatures on Earth. Is it possible to form your own race? Watch until the end to understand why we feel this way. 9. Ebby's step-ex missing story. The worst thing that could ever happen to a parent is the loss of their child. Ebby's step-ex skeletal remains were found in a park where the girl had gone missing from. Her mother had been on the show almost 3 years ago when she had first gone missing, and now she was back after her worst fears were confirmed. No one knows what could have happened to her, or rather, who had such ill intentions towards the girl. The family believes they would have found their daughter in time had the police followed up on her case immediately. According to them, the police made several mistakes, such as taking 3 days to follow up on an abandoned car alert, not watching the security footage of the places around where her car and belongings were discovered, handing over the case to a new detective, and not interviewing the security guard who was on the parking lot where Ebby's car was abandoned. Now, it was too late to go back, and there was nothing they could do to save Ebby. Okay, now I'm out. I'm just about to throw my computer in the trash and disconnect my router. That has been enough internet for one day and maybe a lifetime. But before I go, here's one more unbelievable story of a sick pedophile. But first, I have a quick challenge that takes only 5 seconds to complete. So if you can leave a like and subscribe within the next 5 seconds, you'll get 10 years of amazing luck. Just try it. It really works. 10. My husband ran away with my 16-year-old daughter's friend. Not once did it ever cross Stacy's mind that her husband would try to elope with her underage daughter's friend. Kevin made the impossible possible when he ran away with Amy Yu, their next-door neighbor. It all started so innocently. Kevin would pick up their daughter from school, and at times also Amy, who lived right next door. The two girls were close friends, so Amy would often visit them at home. During these moments, Kevin and Amy became strangely close. They would talk often, would chat on mobile, and call each other late at night. It became clear that something was wrong when they went on vacation. Kevin would spend more time with Amy than he would with his own wife. The two would take selfies together, play games, and stroll around the beach alone. Stacy confronted her husband as she was getting jealous, just as any wife would, but he denied everything. A few weeks went by, Stacy banned Amy from coming into their home, and she thought everything would resume to normalcy when she got the shock of her life. Kevin stole about $10,000 from their savings account. Amy stole about $1,000 from her mother, and together they ran away to Mexico. They were soon found by authorities, and Kevin was sentenced to jail. There are no words to explain what Stacy has gone through. Thanks for watching, and have an excellent day.